John Damey updating the state of play in Michigan. John James is extending his lead over Gary Peters to north of 70,000 votes. His lead continues to build. President Trump also just saw his lead bump up in Michigan to about 27,000 votes. So he's running actually a bit behind John James, who looks good for a Republican pickup. That would be a nice upset victory in Michigan.
And as you said, we need Georgia, North Carolina, Michigan, and Pennsylvania to hold in order to get Trump in the White House.
That's right. And so I know there's concern about what may be happening in Michigan, Pennsylvania in particular, but reporting as we're going here, it's volatile. We've seen Trump's lead shrink in Michigan overnight, and now we've seen it bump back up a little bit, and James's lead bump back up even more. For more on everything that has transpired and will, we're pleased to be joined by John Hinderaker, president of the Center of the American Experiment, founder of powerlineblog.com, a must-read blog. John, thanks for joining us. Why did you not deliver Minnesota for President Trump?
Yes.
I'm disappointed. A Republican has not won a statewide race in Minnesota, any statewide race, since 2006. And the last Republican presidential nominee to carry Minnesota was Richard Nixon in 1972. So it's not an upset when a Democrat carries Minnesota. I had my fingers crossed, thought we had a chance, but it didn't happen.
Yeah. Your reaction to President Trump early this morning, saying that he's confused about what happened to this election that he was watching. They stopped counting. He's talking about Pennsylvania. They frauded the American public. He's mainly talking about Pennsylvania. We're going to take them to the Supreme Court. He's still talking about Pennsylvania. What do you say in reaction to the president's reaction?
Well, one, I think he's going to win Pennsylvania. He's got a 680,000 lead last time I checked. And unless all of the ballots that remain to be counted are early voting ballots, which could be true, and unless they go super heavily for Biden, I mean, he's got a huge lead in Pennsylvania. But obviously what he's talking about was the lawless action by the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, which just unilaterally and arbitrarily extended the election by 3 days and said, oh, yeah, count all the ballots that come in within 3 days after Election Day. And what that does is it gives the Democrats to look at the count when the ballots have been cast, the real ballots, and figure out how many more they need and try to go out and get them in those 3 days. Well, so Trump is right to be angry about that. And if the case ever gets to the U.S. Supreme Court, it did get to the Supreme Court, and they held off ruling on it, hoping it wouldn't be necessary. But if that case ever gets to the Supreme Court, I think Trump very likely wins it.
And what about Georgia? What's going on there?
Well, I don't, when I look at, you guys might have more recent figures. I'm looking at the Wall Street Journal state-by-state breakdown. They've got Trump up by 102,000. Are there some more recent numbers? I mean,
No.
My feeling would be, A, he's going to win Georgia. B, if he doesn't, he's probably finished. I mean, Georgia's I think a must-win state for Trump.
Well, it is now, especially if Wisconsin doesn't come in for Trump, and that's looking less likely this morning. But no new numbers on Georgia. There's just a question, and we don't really know the answer. This is part of the conundrum with respect to all of the mail-in voting. We don't really know what kind of volume we're talking about when it relates to, for example, the outstanding votes in Fulton County in Atlanta. And that's sort of the same sort of thing in Pennsylvania to some extent. It's the same sort of thing in Nevada to some extent, which is why we find ourselves in this place on Wednesday morning.
Yeah, and as I understand it, the basic arithmetic is that the state that Trump has got the best chance to carry that still is outstanding, and I'm taking Georgia out of that category, is Pennsylvania. And assuming he does carry Pennsylvania, and with a 680,000 lead, I sure hope he will, he's got to carry one more, right?
Yeah, he's got to carry Michigan.
Or else, maybe come from behind to Nevada or something. But he's got to carry another state.
Yes, that's right. That's right. And, just taking a step back here, I go back to the ABC News Washington Post poll from October 28th, so, 4 days before the election. Biden leads Trump by 17 points in Wisconsin. Right now, it's 49 point or 48.6 to 47.9 or some such thing. In other words, it's less than a percentage point. I hope this is remembered and the credibility, whatever is left of it among at least half the country of organizations like ABC News and Washington and the Washington Post goes to nil.
Dan, the entire establishment has had their thumb on the scale for 4 years trying to bring down Donald Trump. I think the pollsters, it's just part of the same old story. I don't think that they're so inept that they can't get within 15 points of the right result. I think what a lot of them do is they set up their turnout model in such a way as to magnify Biden votes. They did the same thing 4 years ago. And then most of them, not all, as you point out, but most of them, the last week before the election, all of a sudden the race tightens, so it's within the margin of error, and they say, oh, Trump is catching up. Well, he may in fact be catching up, but I suspect that what's going on is that they are tweaking those turnout models to make them more realistic. And I think they do that to help Democratic Party fundraising and to demoralize Republicans.
Yeah, there's no. I mean, that's exactly what's happening. You just wonder then how you go forward in this environment, whether it's President Trump or whether it's President Biden. You just wonder where this goes. The acrimony will continue. The mistrust will grow. People will either become more confrontational or they'll drop out altogether. I don't know. I don't mean to be fatalistic, but it just doesn't portend well for the Republic.
Well, it certainly doesn't to have a president who's barely functional. I mean, I don't think Joe Biden is capable of discharging the duties of the office, let alone discharging them well. And that's going to be a really interesting thing to watch play out. I mean, are the Democrats going to try to replace him under the 25th Amendment or some such scheme? Will he even survive for 4 years? I don't know. The good news, Dan, is the Republicans have held the Senate. Right. So we have that bulwark. The real nightmare scenario is Biden wins and the Democrats take the Senate, and they do away with the filibuster. They admit Puerto Rico and D.C. as states. They pack the Supreme Court. They legalize 12 million illegal immigrants. All of those things are on the agenda if they had captured the Senate.
Yeah, then there'd never be a Republican president ever.
That was the idea. President Erdogan of Turkey has said, democracy is like a streetcar. When you get to your stop, you get off, right? and that's the Democrats reviewing 2020 is the stop where we get off.
And it's interesting too because the Republican senators that are going to be responsible for holding the Senate, yes, Susan Collins won, but they're otherwise conservatives, and the two pickups to replace the two defeats, if John James comes in, are conservatives, Tuberville in Alabama, James in Michigan. So it's not like they're going to be anxious to join the Mitt Romney caucus.
No, that's right. I just had my fingers crossed praying that John James wins. He's a great candidate. He'll be a great senator. And, right now he's ahead. What
do you see as the future for the Republican Party? I mean, let's just play out worst case scenario that Joe Biden is elected. What does the Republican Party do other than immediately the scramble begins for 2024? But what do they do in terms of reflecting on the last 4 years and Trump's remarkable performance, including in 2020, even in defeat, if that's what comes to pass?
Yeah, right. There's been a lot of talk about Trumpism without Trump. Who are the standard bearers? I think what Trump did more than anything else was to cement the Republican Party's position as the party of the middle class and the working man, and the party that it puts America first, not the global elites. And I think that's going to be his lasting contribution. I think whoever the nominee is in 4 years, and we've got some, I think, excellent candidates for that role, they're not going to lose that lesson. I mean, they are going to pick up the banner that President Trump has raised high. And I think Trump is going to be, he's not going away. And I think he'll be, enthusiastically endorsing and campaigning for his successor in 2024. So, every president to some degree creates his own coalition. The winning presidential coalition is never exactly the same, and you can't fully have Trumpism without Trump. You know what I mean? Because his personality was part of his appeal to a lot of voters. The fact that he wasn't a politician. But that said, the key elements of his policies can be carried forward, and I'm confident that they will be.
Interesting. You don't think that he'll shy away from the limelight if he's defeated? Shocking. He's
a walking reality TV show.
Again, just playing out this scenario because I think it's just an interesting thought exercise. COVID-19. If it's President-elect Biden by week's end or whenever, then where are we going with COVID-19 following Boris Johnson and Emmanuel Macron?
I think so. There's some kind of cynical expectation that once the election is over, the Democrats will say, well, never mind, COVID-19 has served its purpose, let's get back to business. I don't think that's going to happen. I think at some level they're true believers. And I know here in Minnesota there are rumors that our governor was just waiting until after the election to order a really draconian shutdown sometime in the next week or 10 days. And, Biden has talked about a national shutdown, which he does not have the constitutional authority to order, as far as I know, right? And, the police powers are with the states. But I think they're pretty serious about that, and I think the consequences could be pretty drastic.
You concerned at all? I mean, just, again, thinking about how much the left was able to advance their cultural agenda in the last 4 years without the White House and without the Senate, that you're really going to see the sort of confrontation that leads to violence because of the desire to exact punishment on anybody who would dare support Trump, whether it's, and by the way, just getting you fired from your job or ostracized via social media isn't enough.
Well, yeah, I think we're going to see a lot more of that kind of thing. I think that even this kind of squeaky Biden victory is going to be seen by all those people as vindication. I think that Antifa is the militant arm of the Democratic Party, much like the Ku Klux Klan was 100 years plus ago. And I think that a Biden administration is going to smile very benignly on Antifa, BLM rioters. And I think that we're going to see more of, cancel culture and the insanity of the universities and all that kind of stuff. And I think the question becomes, most Americans haven't really felt that stuff yet. This is something you hear about if you're on Twitter and so on. I mean, or if you're a college student. But I mean, most Americans, it hasn't really impinged on them. And my hope is that as more people really become aware of how awful this stuff is and how serious the Democrats are about socialism and really hating America, I'm hoping for a major reaction against that in 2024.
And Antifa wants to camp out on the White House lawn.
Yeah,
and maybe even try and take it over.
If Biden wins, he might let him in. I don't know.
He is John Hinderaker, President and Center of the American Experiment, founder of PowerlineBlog.com. John, thanks as always for joining us. Appreciate it.
Hey, thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
It's like a hot, steaming cup of information to start your day. It's Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
If you are purchasing a new home or refinancing your existing home, call Team Hochberg, your trusted local lender. Today, meet Donnie, Special Forces veteran who called to cash out $20,000 for home improvements. Before calling Team Hochberg, Donnie started refinancing with Rocket Loving Lending. Bad move. We analyzed Donnie's situation and advised him to cancel his Rocket Loving Lending loan because it was not the right loan for him. We are helping Donnie enhance his credit to secure a HELOC because that was Donnie's best loan option. Before calling, Donnie was paying exorbitant closing costs for a loan not in his financial best interest with Rocket Loving Lending. After calling Team Hochberg, Donnie is enhancing his credit to secure a HELOC, which is in his financial best interest. If you are a veteran wanting to work with a lender who respects your service and will always look out for your financial best interest, call 855-56-DAVID or visit 56david.com. We've helped thousands of radio listeners, but we can't help if you don't call 855-56-DAVID or visit 56david.com. Homeside Financial, Equal Housing Lender, MLS 112-4061.
Hi, it's Amy Jacobson. And as you know, our friend Mike Lindell has a passion to help everyone get the best sleep of their life. And he didn't stop by simply creating the best pillow. Oh no, Mike created the new Giza Dream bed sheets. They look and feel great.